I found the first crack at 2 a.m. I wasn't looking for it. Cracks like that never announce themselves. They just widen quietly under your feet until one night you look down and realize you've been standing on nothing for a while. My phone buzzed. An ad for the exact thing I'd only thought about. Never typed, never said out loud. I stared at the ceiling and felt something shift. Not fear yet, just a question. And a question, once it's asked, doesn't like to go back to sleep. This is the story of how far that question took me, level 1 to level 5. Stay close. Level 1 starts soft. Level 1 is just a flicker. You watch an old video of the moon landing, the flag moving in a vacuum where there shouldn't be wind, and you tell yourself it's just physics you don't understand. You almost believe that. Almost. You close the tab. You go make dinner. But the flicker doesn't fully go out, it just dims, waiting in the corner of your mind for the lights to go off again. At level 1, you're still a skeptic of your own skepticism. You still say, there's probably an explanation. You still trust the news anchor's calm voice mostly. You drive past a cell tower and don't think twice. Level 1 is just a flicker. Flickers are cheap. Flickers cost you nothing. Yet. But a flicker in a dark room has a way of pulling your eyes toward it, and once your eyes adjust, you start seeing the shapes of things you couldn't see before. Level 2 is where the flicker becomes a fire you keep feeding. You watch one video about the moon landing, then a longer one about the shadows in the photographs, the ones that don't fall the way sunlight should allow. 3 hours vanish. You surface with your eyes dry and your heart oddly fast, and a feeling that you've stumbled onto the edge of something they don't want you to see. Not everything, but something. And that something has teeth. At level 2, the world starts humming differently. You read about towers going up on your street, tall and silver and humming with frequencies you can't hear but suddenly can't stop thinking about. You feel a headache one afternoon and your mind goes straight there before it goes anywhere else. You mention it to a friend, testing the water, watching their face for a flicker of their own. Sometimes you get it. Sometimes you get a look like you've grown a second head. That look burns more than it should. Level 2 feels like a blindfold coming off. Like the friendly, well-lit version of the world was always a stage set, and you've just found the seam in the backdrop. It's intoxicating in a dark way, this feeling of being the one person awake in a room full of sleepers. You don't say it out loud, but you start to feel like you're the last sane person on a sinking ship everyone else insists is floating just fine. That feeling is the current, and the current pulls you toward level 3. Level 3 is when the private fire becomes a private war room. You keep tabs open at all hours. You build a timeline in your head, connecting a headline from 6 months ago to a headline from yesterday, certain there's a hand behind both, guiding them toward the same door. You start explaining things to people who didn't ask. At dinner, in line at the store, your voice dropping to a near whisper. You know they're already testing systems that think for themselves, right? Machines built to replace the decisions we used to make ourselves. The room goes quiet. You keep talking anyway because someone has to. At level 3, the pattern recognition never turns off. You see the same handful of names and companies behind everything you touch before 9 in the morning, and you start to feel the shape of a hand at the center of it, unseen, patient, arranging the pieces from somewhere far above the noise. You picture rooms you'll never be invited into, decisions made in silence that ripple down into your ordinary Tuesday. You don't know exactly who's in those rooms. That's what scares you most. The not knowing starts to feel like the real conspiracy, the empty chair at the head of the table that everyone's too afraid to name. This is the level where your nights stop being restful. You watch footage of the moon frame by frame. You read about frequencies and towers until the numbers blur. You feel sharp, awake, dangerously alive. Level 3 still has adrenaline in it. That adrenaline is the last thing that still feels good. Level 4 is where the fear stops being exciting and starts being heavy. At level 4, you notice how little you sleep. Not because the research keeps you up, though it does, but because your mind won't put the pieces down even in the dark. You've built a structure now, load-bearing walls made of half-answers, and every new fact either holds the structure up or threatens to bring the whole thing down on your head. You stop calling this obsession. You call it vigilance. Level 4 is quieter than level 3 because you've learned what happens when you speak too loudly. You've seen the way people's eyes slide away from you mid-sentence, the small, practiced retreat behind a polite smile. So you go silent. You keep the war room in your head instead of your mouth. You watch the sky differently now, wondering how much of it is really sky and how much is signal. You watch machines get smarter on the news and feel a cold drop in your stomach that has no name yet. At level 4, dread becomes background noise, a low hum under everything, like the towers you swear you can almost hear if the night is quiet enough. You start to wonder if the fear itself is the point, if someone, something, benefits from you staying this afraid, this awake, this alone in your own head at 3 in the morning.
Be real.
You don't know who. You don't know what. But you feel watched by an idea now, not a person. And an idea can't be caught. And an idea never sleeps either. You start to notice that certainty feels safer than the dark. That's the real discovery of level 4, even if it terrifies you to admit it. Believing something monstrous is running the show feels, somehow, more bearable than believing nothing is running it at all, that the chaos is just chaos, unowned and unwatched. Level 4 trades the dark for a monster with a face, because at least a monster with a face can be feared correctly. And then there's level 5. Level 5 isn't loud. I expected level 5 to scream. I expected sirens, conviction. Certainty turned all the way up until it burned. Instead, level 5 is silent. And the silence is the most frightening part. It's the level where you no longer need anyone to believe you, because the structure you built no longer needs an audience to stand. You believe it because you built it with your own exhausted hands, one sleepless night at a time, starting from a single flicker that once seemed so small. At level 5, you watch the world and see nothing but design. The moon, the towers, the machines learning to think, the quiet architects somewhere above the clouds. Every coincidence becomes a signature. Every silence becomes a confession. You've stopped explaining yourself, because explaining costs energy you no longer have, and you've learned that most people would rather sleep soundly inside the story than stand awake beside you in the dark one. You don't blame them anymore. Some nights you almost miss being one of them. But here's the part nobody warns you about. At level 5, in the last quiet minute before sleep finally takes you, a different question starts to surface. Not, what are they hiding from me, but, what have I built to hide from everything else? You start to wonder if the pattern-finding mind that once felt like a gift became, somewhere along level 3 or 4, a cage you built brick by brick and locked from the inside. You start to wonder if the real conspiracy was never the moon or the towers or the machines. Maybe the real conspiracy was against your own rest, and you were the one running it, one sleepless night at a time. That's the reframe. That's the thing it took all 5 levels, and every hour of sleep I lost to understand. The questioning was never the danger. Questioning is how you don't get lied to by the easy, comfortable story. But somewhere between the flicker and the fire, the questioning stopped being something I used and became something that used me instead. It stopped being a light I carried into the dark and became the dark itself, wearing the light's shape just well enough to fool me. So now, when the pull comes, when I feel the pattern forming behind my eyes at 2 a.m., I ask myself something new. Not, who's behind this? But what am I avoiding by staying awake in the war room instead of walking back out into the ordinary, uncertain world? Because the ordinary world, it turns out, is where the peace lives. Coincidences that are just coincidences. Silence that isn't a signature. A sky that's just a sky. I still notice things. I don't think that ever fully goes away. But I've learned to let some cracks stay unexamined. I've learned that not every flicker needs to become a fire. And most nights now, when my phone buzzes with something a little too perfectly timed, I just smile at it, put the phone face down, and let the dark be dark without filling it with monsters. Because I found the first crack at 2 a.m. once, and this time the thing I found underneath it was me.